how's everyone doing?
All right.
So just real quick, I want to thank Innovate Pasadena and Mike. I want to thank Ben at Cross Campus for also being a gracious host. Cross Campus, yeah, these guys are great, and they let us host a monthly WordPress meetup here. It's the third Tuesday evening of every month, so I'll kind of get into some of that stuff. But just real quick, so just to show of hands, how many people have actually heard of WordPress? Now keep your hands up. How many of you use it for whatever it is that you're doing, business-wise? Most of you. Okay, so maybe some of this is just going to be a review, and you're going to be like, yeah, guy, I've heard all that stuff, and tell me something new. So I'll just tell you a few things, and then we'll open it up for Q&A at the end. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yep.
Awesome. So what's the deal with WordPress? Why is it something that is used so frequently, just all over the place? You see it everywhere. It started life as a blogging platform, as most of you know. I think it was forked off of B2 Cafe Log, which was another blogging platform. And it was forked by this guy named Matt Mullenweg and another gentleman named Mike Little. And together they kind of created this behemoth that's kind of sweeping over the web. Just according to Quantcast, as of December 2014, it runs about 19% of their top 1 million sites that they track. So close to 160,000. And I don't have an official figure, but also according to Quantcast, they're estimating that it runs a total of 4.5% of websites that you see out there. So it's a pretty staggering figure. So why do people use it? So actually, let me pose a question to some people out there. So of people that raise their hands, why do you use it for whatever it is that you're using? Just shout out a suggestion.
SEO.
SEO. It's SEO friendly out of the box.
It's a template for my website.
And there's a bunch of templates for your website that you can choose from. So there's a staggering number of free themes that you can use to build from. So if you are on a lean budget, it's something that you can use to build a marketing site fairly quickly. And even though WordPress began life as a blogging platform, there's a annual conference, generally called a WordCamp, and there's a central one that's held every year. And for the past 7 years, it's been in San Francisco. But one of the interesting stats that we found is that more and more people use WordPress as more of a content management system or other type of platform, and not so much for a blog, which is interesting because that's what it was. That's what its initial intention for use was. So people are using it for all kinds of stuff, and I'll get into some of that. Now, with that said, now there's a lot of innovators in this room, a lot of people that work with or have worked with a variety of different startups. So this is kind of focused on why a startup might want to consider using WordPress. So one reason that I think that jumps out is that it's open source. It's a GPL 2.0 license, and it's free. So for those that don't know, WordPress comes in a couple varieties. There's a .com version and a .org version. So .com is a hosted platform. So WordPress is hosted for you. Initially, you can host your site for free. There's paid add-ons and all that stuff. So, and then there's .org. That's the self-hosted version. That's where you pick your host, you install it, and all this other stuff. A lot of popular hosting providers often provide like a one-click install sort of thing. So, so you guys have probably seen that. Another thing that some people don't always consider, but you own your content. You can move it wherever you want. And sometimes this is a concern. I know that you can't, well, don't quote me on this, but I know that other providers such as Squarespace and Wix. In the past, there's been some dust-ups over who actually owns the content, but you can definitely move your content away from there and host it wherever you like, for sure. Now, so what I've already said is that WordPress is a pretty wonderful blogging platform. It's search engine friendly, and that's one of the primary reasons why people flock to use it. And if you're trying to promote a product or service, it's a great way to promote that without a lot of overhead. Really, you just have to create the content, which, of course, creating content's a whole other beast and a whole other meetup. But what I see from a lot of folks, and there's different startups that we've worked with. There's a film-based one that we're working with right now, and what they want to do is they want to create a job marketplace that connects filmmakers to a variety of different talent, from editors, production staff, and what have you. And to promote what they're doing, or to figure out if they actually have a thing that's worthwhile, they're building their initial marketing site off of WordPress. So it seems like a logical choice for them, and it's fairly simple to set up. So we're just kind of consulting with them and working with them on how to get that all set up. Another thing that sometimes we see is some businesses, some folks like to aggregate news from a variety of different sources and channel it through their websites. Because sometimes it's hard to create content on your own. WordPress allows for, it has very capable tools that allow you to bring content through your website that you can then easily share in a variety of different social channels. So brochureware sites, simple blogs, that's easy. Some businesses will use this as a WordPress site as their marketing hub. And in the case of the startup we're working with, they're called FilmPatch. Their big thing is, of course, can we get someone to give us an email address based off of some interesting copy and some visuals. So this is something that they're kind of tying into some other marketing automation tools to help them figure out if, hey, does this idea have traction? So creating content, marketing campaigns, and integrating with other leading marketing automation solutions is something that you can definitely do easily with WordPress. And there's a ton of choices out there that you can choose. And with WordPress, we like iOS, there's an app for that. Well, with WordPress, there's a plugin for that. That's what we call it in that ecosystem. So there's a variety of plugins that you can install that extend the capabilities of what you're doing. And the great thing about WordPress that I see is there's I don't see two sites that are usually the same in how they're utilizing WordPress and how they're doing things. Some people have a very simple implementation and it works for them. Some folks are able to test out very simple, very, very simple ideas, or highly complex too. So one of the things that I like is there's a solid integration with this service provider called ActiveCampaign, if you guys are familiar with it. It's a great platform for creating funnels is probably the wrong word that I'm looking for, but just kind of creating a process, an automated process of keeping up to people depending on what sort of actions they're taking on your site. If they're bouncing off your website but they leave their address, or if they go to your site, they're trying to buy something and they abandon their cart, there's different actions that you can take to market toward these different people and bring them back to the site. So there's very, very capable, very strong tools out there that'll help you out. Now, something that doesn't necessarily get discussed a lot is you can actually build some pretty robust social communities. And it's true you can use WordPress to build forums, just discussion forums around your product or service. One of the other interesting things that I've seen is that I've seen some of our clients leverage the social network layer that's called BuddyPress. It's also open source and it sits on top of WordPress for creating a community for people to discuss products or services. There's one startup in particular that we've worked with called Hey Good Cookin', which is a clever name and what have you. I couldn't get it out of my head for a while. It's like, I kept on saying it to people and people thought I was a jerk. Anyway, so the reason why I think that's interesting is they created a platform that they wanted to get people connected in their localities, in their local communities, and really get people to share the things that they're passionate about. In this case, it has to do with food. So they talk about recipes, to share recipes, and a variety of other things. And you know, it's just interesting because they've really created a community around a paid service. So it's really a membership site, and there's premium add-ons once they do sign on. And I find that compelling. I think that's a great use of WordPress, and a fairly complex one too. But even though it is complex, like all the tools are there for you to build it. So that's another thing to consider. So actually, has anyone ever, does anyone have a site that maybe uses BuddyPress or anything like that? I don't see it too often, but it's a powerful platform, so I'm just curious. So no hands went up there, no hands, it's okay. So another thing that you can do with WordPress is you can build native mobile apps that are powered by WordPress. So there's a couple tools that I'll highlight here, and so there's a couple tools that I think are worth mentioning. One's called AppPresser, and this is a tool that with it you can build an online app that's tied to your WordPress powered store, or any variety of content distribution powered by WordPress. So everything that you do with the site is powered in the back end, as well as different add-ons and other functionality and capabilities. You can do this with AppPresser, which I think is awesome. You do have to package the app and submit it to your respective stores, and I think it supports the Google Play Store and also the Apple App Store. So Reactor, it basically does the same thing, but it's kind of hosted for you, and it uses some other nifty technology, React.js in particular, to help you build native mobile applications that are powered by WordPress. And the neat solution with that is, even though it's kind of a hosted solution, they'll take care of submitting the app and help you get it approved. So this is also a great service as well. And Reactor's kind of a monthly sort of thing, and AppPresser is licensed on an annual basis. So if you have a product or service that you want to put out there, and I've seen people just put an app out there where you can book their time, very simply. I've seen some applications that are just simply means of distributing blog content. And of course, I've seen websites powered or apps powered by WooCommerce. Does anyone in here know what WooCommerce is or have used it? A few hands. An interesting note with that is WooCommerce was just recently purchased by Automatic, which is the company that runs the for-profit arm of WordPress. And so I think that's kind of a move, or industry experts say that that's kind of a move to compete with others such as Squarespace and or Wix that are adding bolt-on e-commerce to their offerings. Which brings me, of course, to selling products online. So now there's a number of shops that sell things online. I look at GitHub. GitHub doesn't doesn't use WordPress, but they use Shopify to sell, just little trinkets, cups, mugs, T-shirts, in every variety of OctoKitty you can think of. And if you find an OctoKitty, send it my way. I collect those. So anyway, as far as selling products online, it's just WooCommerce is a platform. It's not the only WordPress platform that's out there, but you can sell digital goods, you can sell physical goods, and also you can sell memberships. So I've got a few examples of some services out there that leverage WordPress in that fashion, and I'll kind of go over each of those a little more in depth. So let's see, is there anyone in here that has or is working with a startup or a business that would like to sell memberships or some sort of software as a service? So you can definitely leverage WordPress to help you. So as I mentioned before, there's a startup that we're working with called FilmCatch, and they want to validate their MVP, and their idea is to do that with WordPress, which is why they approached us. So even though WordPress has very specific functionality out of the box, it's something that you can extend fairly easily, either by use of plugins or with the extensive WordPress API. The WordPress API is a very powerful tool that you can tie into and manipulate however you want. And on top of that, there's also a JSON REST API that is currently in beta, and the people working on it are trying to roll that into WordPress core. And that in and of itself is kind of a game changer because it allows developers to interact with WordPress in receiving data, in manipulating data, writing data to it in a variety of different ways. So I think as pervasive as you see WordPress out there in the world, I think with this new JSON API, you're going to see even more of it, which is kind of crazy to think about because it's like almost everywhere. So that's another thing to think about. Now, with as many folks out there and businesses and platforms that use WordPress, I could sit up here and talk for like another I don't know until you guys kick me out of here about who's using it. But I just kind of selected a few companies that stuck out to me, some of whom are startups that use WordPress. So the first one, there's this company called Sakuri out there. Has anyone ever heard of Sakuri? Okay, a few people. Well, what they do is they do malware scanning and remediation. I think as of this year, they're clearing about 10 million in annual sales, and they're really starting to get into the enterprise market. Their whole marketing front end is handled through WordPress. They're big supporters of the WordPress community. And initially when they got started, they used WordPress for some of their back end too, as far as handling the accounts area and taking care of trouble tickets and stuff like that. So I think they're a great example of a startup that's really kind of killing it in their space, that's using WordPress for their marketing. Another company out there is called Happy Tables. Now, I don't imagine anyone in here has heard of Happy Tables, but this is a company that offers software as a service. They basically took WordPress and kind of turned it on its head and made a Squarespace type offering to folks who specifically run restaurants. That's it. If you run a bar or restaurant, this is the service for you. So, without getting under the hood with all the stuff that they do with WordPress, they have basically taken the WordPress multi-site platform and they've created this just staggering offering that's much more user-friendly than WordPress is out of the box. They've changed so much about it, but it's all WordPress under the hood. And this multi-site capability allows people to just sign up and create new websites. And if they have a chain, they can easily create sites from one account for multiple different chains, or just different locations. And it really is a great service. And I would say that these guys are one of the early software as a service providers, at least in the WordPress specific ecosystem. So I think what they're doing is very impressive. Startup Weekend is, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with these guys, and their blog is hosted with WordPress. I've got a friend who is, he's got a simple list making tool that he wants to sell as a monthly service as well, called Stratalist. And it's stratalist.net. You can sign up now, and it's free, of course, but the thing that I love about it is that it is software as a service, just collaborative list making. It's stuff you've seen before, but it's all kind of powered by WordPress, which, again, blows my mind because there's so many different applications in which you can use it. And then Tiplo is another one, is another startup that uses WordPress for their kind of marketing arm of what they do. And for those of you that remember, Groupon started out with the WordPress blog. So it's all over the place. And some of the favorite sites you go to, TechCrunch, Recode, or whatever else is out there, chances are it may be powered by WordPress. Which is not to say it's the best platform, but it's my favorite platform. And it's pretty popular for a reason. Just one guy's opinion. Now, if you ever talk to a WordPress enthusiast, so this is just for anyone out there, you're getting ready to compose an email to someone, you're like, hey, I want to talk WordPress. Make sure to capitalize the P in WordPress. It's all one word, capital P. Don't do that if you are trying to pick on somebody. So that's just a thing. And this function is actually in WordPress core. So if you try to write a blog post with WordPress lowercase p, that'll autocorrect it for you. So, I mean, they're pretty serious about it. So anyway. So that is essentially what I got. So as you already know, I'm Alex Vasquez, and I work with a company called DigiSavvy, and we do a monthly meetup here on the third Tuesday every month. It's all WordPress discussion forum stuff, and it's free. And that's all I got.